Hey there, and welcome back to Tim Talks Cooking. Today, we are talking keto cream of mushroom soup, my friend. I think you're going to love this velvety, lovely soup recipe. And you know what? This is one that you can use in other recipes, just like you used to use that can of cream of mushroom soup whenever you wanted a quick casserole or something like that. I think there may be a video or two in that. Anyway, this is great soup. Let's get started. Here's what you'll need to make this really great cream of mushroom soup. It starts off with 2 pounds of sliced white mushrooms. You can use criminy mushrooms as well if you like. Those are those baby bella mushrooms. They're really delicious. 1 diced yellow onion. 4 or 5 large cloves of garlic minced. I've also got here a cup of heavy whipping cream. 5 cups of beef bone broth. You could also use chicken broth or vegetable stock, really any kind of stock that's flavorful that you like to use in soups. I have here as well 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. If you'd like to use just thyme or basil, that would also be delicious in this soup. I've also got here a half a cup of chopped parsley. We're going to use this to sort of garnish it at the end. And we're also going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum to thicken it up, as well as, of course, some kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper to season it. Here you can see I have 2 stainless steel pans that I'm heating up here and melting some butter into. And I'm doing this so we have the most space to give to all of our mushrooms here. If we put both of these pounds of mushrooms in the same pan, it's just going to crowd, they're going to steam. And that's actually a little crowded right there. You know what, I'm just going to take some of those out. Now, as you can see, not each one has its own space on the surface down there, but this is not really too bad, and they will brown this way. We're going to cook these over medium-high heat for about 15 minutes altogether. Right here at the beginning is also a good time to season your mushrooms. I'm going to use about 1/4 to a half a teaspoon of kosher salt in each skillet and give it a nice round of freshly ground black pepper. We're going to season this dish at every step of the way, so we don't want to overdo it with the pepper or the salt. While mushrooms cook, they shrink. And so you want to stand by and sort of move them around a little bit to get everyone onto the bottom where it's going to cook the fastest and where it's going to brown the best. We want these to become a golden brown on both sides. You'll also notice that they give up a lot of liquid. Like here, you can see it's bubbling up in the pan. That's just fine. We're just going to let that liquid evaporate, and we're going to concentrate all of the flavors here in the mushrooms themselves. See, in this pan, there's not so much water. In fact, I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. We don't want to burn them. After about 10 minutes, here's what they look like. You can see the bottoms of the pans are dry. And in this case, you can see some of the mushrooms are getting golden. Look at that. That's really what we're looking for there, that kind of browning on both sides. This one we're just going to turn over. I'm going to stir these in both cases and give them at least 5 more minutes. This pan might take a little more time than that. Now that the mushrooms are brown, as you can see, look at that. Aren't those great? I'm going to transfer these into the larger of the 2 skillets. I've got the flame on medium-high here. I pushed the mushrooms off to the side because next we're going to cook our onions. But first we might want a little more fat. I'm going to put a tablespoon or 2 more of fat in there. This time I'm going to use some extra virgin olive oil. That pan is pretty hot after cooking all those mushrooms, so I don't want to put more butter in there. So I'm going to slide the onions right on in there. We'll reserve the garlic for once the onions have become translucent. I'm also going to season it quickly. A little bit of salt. A little bit of freshly ground black pepper. I'm also going to add in our Italian seasoning. Give it a nice stir. And I'm going to continue to cook this until the onions are translucent. Once the onions have softened, we're going to add in the garlic. Give it a quick stir. We're going to smell that right away, of course. Oh yeah, that is just lovely. And then next, we're going to pour in our beef bone broth. And again, kind of carefully, I need to also remember to turn the heat down a little bit. There we go. You don't want to make a big mess. Get it in there. And now obviously you can make this in whatever kind of pan you have to make soup in. This one just happens to be really convenient to do this many mushrooms in. And there we go. And so I'm just going to sort of scrape the bottom up. Here we're going to deglaze the bottom by doing this. Now I'm going to turn the heat back up because we want to bring this up to a simmer. Well, a boil and then a simmer. Now this is what I mean by a slow simmer. You can see it's just barely bubbling away. We don't want to evaporate all of the liquid that's in here. It's a soup, we want to keep the liquid in there. So here's what we're going to do. Now we're going to turn the heat down to medium-low, or even a little lower. I'm going to put the lid on and let some steam escape and leave it for, like I said, about an hour, and then we'll be back. It's been about an hour now, so I'm going to taste this for seasoning. Oh, that's delicious. It doesn't need anything at all. I've turned the heat off, and we're ready to puree this. As you can see, I'm ladling our mushroom mixture into the blender. When pureeing hot liquids, you want to keep a kitchen towel handy to cover the top and make sure nothing spurts out here when you turn on the blender. Sometimes hot liquid expands in the blender and it'd be kind of a problem. And here's what we end up with. A beautiful puree of mushrooms in beef bone broth. This goes back on the stovetop over medium heat. And now it's time to add in the cream and the xanthan gum. I'm going to whisk this in. And we're just going to gradually heat this. I'm going to make sure I get all that cream out of there. There we go. Whisk it in. Make sure it blends in nice and thoroughly. Isn't that beautiful? It smells fantastic, I gotta say. And we're just going to heat this up now. It's going to take a little while. The cream is cold. And so I'm going to put a lid on it and let it come up to temperature for about 5 minutes. Keep an eye on it while you warm it up and give it a stir every now and then. It's been about 5 minutes and now my soup is heated up. If you're not sure, give it the finger test. That's pretty hot. And boy, is that delicious. Now's the time to sprinkle in the xanthan gum. I just sort of sprinkle it in over the top like a seasoning and then whisk it in. And this is going to give it a lovely velvety texture. It's going to take the place of the roux that you would use, the flour and butter roux that you would use to thicken this if you were making a traditional recipe. And look at that. Look at how that thickens right up. I'm going to continue heating this for another couple of minutes and then it'll be ready to serve. Well, all right, let's give this a taste. I'm going to garnish it with just a couple of flakes of parsley, which I think it looks nice and also tastes really nice. Gives a nice fresh taste. Anyway, really looks great. Smells so good. Oh man. It's velvety, creamy, of course. There's a certain amount of cream in there. Wow, that is delicious. This soup you're going to get about 8 servings out of, 8 generous servings. I think that is just delicious. And after making this, you saw how easy it was. I can't imagine why you'd ever use cream of mushroom soup out of a can again. Listen, thanks so much for stopping by today here at Tim Talks Cooking. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and especially subscribe before you go. It really helps my channel, and it helps you find my videos. And I upload new ones a couple of times a week, so maybe think about it. Anyway, we'll catch you next time at Tim Talks Cooking.